everybody, and welcome to episode number 11 of the Veilcast. And today we are talking about pets. Pets. I think it's a huge topic, and it's a most recent Kickstarter that they just funded. If you go to their main page, you can, not the Kickstarter, but the stretch goals. Part of the Kickstarter, raising more money. They got these stretch goals, and they just reached it. Lots of stuff to look at, lots of stuff to talk about. Joining me as always, Velik, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good, man.
Doing good?
Doing
good.
Alistair, I'm excited to talk about pets. I should have actually worn my little fox ear hat today. Okay, I have one.
Are you a big fan of pets? Do you like playing pet classes and all that stuff?
Not really. I actually don't want
Just
pets.
excited to talk about it.
I don't want pets. I don't like pet classes.
Right. All right. Alistair, what about you? Are you a pet guy?
No. Well, depends. I mean, I played a warlock. It's a pet class essentially in WoW. But I'm not a big fan of. It is.
Yeah.
You have multiple pets though, which is even more weird. But yeah, but I'm not a fan.
Not a fan. Awesome.
Not a fan.
Well, we definitely want to try to
PvP.
Right?
Yeah.
We're going to go over a ton of stuff. We're going to talk about what we know so far from the official webpage and the information they've released. We're going to guess is how we think they're going to work. We're going to compare it to other games, even Warhammer Online and Dark Age of Camelot, which these developers, Mark Jacobs, are from. Compared to other games, the good features, bad features, all that sort of stuff, and how we feel about pets, how we feel about it being a stretch goal. It's actually considered the first extender pack. What is an extender pack? How do these work? And then, of course, our closing thoughts. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Velik and Alistair, what do we know so far as how pets work in Camelot Unchained? What's it all about?
Yeah, I mean, they have told us that they had the intention to do the pet class for a while now. So it says here that they had no intention initially, but maybe it would be a thing. And we know that this is not going to be something that they would do pre-launch if there is no time. They said that it's an expansion pack, so essentially it comes if they have time for it, and it's going to be like a patch after launch. Which is good.
Originally, they were hesitant. They kind of implied that there weren't going to be like a pet class because
that's the first thing they said.
Exactly, because there are problems associated with it, as we all know, especially with like the pathing and everything. Everyone's had to deal with problems in MMOs where someone's got their huge pet and it stands right in front of you, or they tell it to go attack something and it takes a weird route and it pulls another group's aggro and all this other stuff. It's just a huge pain in the ass. And so they came up with, until they came up with the solution for it, for like that and some other problems, they didn't want to do it, which, I think was a good decision on their part. I don't think any of us wanted like normal style pets. So instead they came up with this concept of the spirit pets, which is confusing.
And that's a good point though, because
it is confusing. Yeah,
this affects everybody, even people who don't like pets, don't play with pets, never play a pet class. This still affects everybody. It affects you because one, it's the first extender pack, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but that means it's going to be this first kind of patch or whatever it is. So whether you want pets or not, they're putting development time behind it. It also affects you in-game. Like we talk about other games, they get in the way, pathing issues and all this sort of stuff. But like Velik, like you said, they're thinking about having them be spirit pets. When you say that, I'm thinking they can just, go through walls, go through people.
Exactly.
It solves these pathing issues. Alistair,
I want my Patrick Swayze pet.
Right.
But no, just kidding.
Does that really solve the problems though? Like,
it solves the pathing problem, right? Because it's you don't have to worry about little rocks or even spells. Like I put a ice wall in the middle of because Camelot Unchained is going to have those solid objects. So I put an ice wall, and then the pet has to go around or something, or get stuck into the ice wall and stuff. You don't have to worry so much about that with the pets because they are going to go through it, right? But then it creates other problems, because how do you line of sight a pet that goes through everything? You don't, right? So isn't that a little bit overpowered? If you have, imagine if you're a healer and you're trying to heal, and then the archer shooting you. You hide behind something, but then his pet goes through whatever you are hiding behind, hiding behind, and start hitting you and interrupting your healing spells. And you can't, you're line of sighting the player. You're using the terrain to your advantage, but now you have a spirit pet on your face causing disruptive damage and interrupting your cast. how are casters going to feel, if anybody who has a pet essentially has automatic interrupt spell?
Right, 'cause
He puts it on you, and then you're interrupted.
those
right?
are the two problems with pathing, right? You're talking about how they either get stuck on stuff, they run into the rock, and it doesn't work at all. It goes like in a circle, right? Or this problem where it just goes through it. They're kind of, you have to have one or the other, right? Like, doesn't seem like this fixes a problem. It just introduces another problem.
Exactly. Other problems in general. And then there, because the stretch goal, it says that they're essentially like spells, right? They are a school of spells, which is the general trend of people. Every time you say, oh, pets, they're like, oh, the pets and the spirits pets are more like spells than pets themselves. But from what I read on Mark's statement on the website, what he says is essentially some of them will be more like spells, right?
Exactly. This whole thing is leading. I've noticed a lot of people to make assumptions. A lot of people seem to be, I think, kind of positive about this. They really like the idea of pets, and I know there are tons of people that are really big fans of pet classes. But there seem to be a lot of assumptions going out about this. Like, some people are assuming they'll have actual pets like you would with a pet class. You'll have a pet that'll follow you around and do stuff and look cute and flap its wings or whatever. And then other people seem to be assuming that these are like spells that you just summon and you send it after someone and it runs over there and it hits them or attacks them or does something. And that's it. And I'm like, well, that's not really a pet though. That's a spell.
It's a spell with a different animation
called Hawkbeat. So it shoots through the air and hits them. I mean,
it's misleading to call such a thing a pet, right? Because it's not, right?
Yeah, and people don't know which it is.
There can be temporary and permanent pets. I agree with that, right? So, for example, if you played WoW, the Shadow Priest has a temporary pet. I think it was called Shadow Fiend. You summoned it, and then it started hitting somebody, and it brought mana back to the priest while it was up, and it lasted like 45 seconds, a minute. So it was a cooldown that you could use to recover some mana and do some additional damage, and oh, this guy is running behind the pillar to drink and recover. Put some of your pet on him, and then the pet goes in there and stops him from getting out of combat and stuff. So it was a cooldown that you could use as a strategy and stuff. And you have Mesmer Illusions, as Lujati pointed out on the chat, where it's a temporary pet as well. You summon some illusion as a decoy, or you summon. So that's something that has been present in other MMOs, and I'm fine with it. But the thing is, they're still pets, right? You kind of control them in a sense.
And they, I mean, that's why I said this is confusing, because they haven't explained how they actually intend this to be, and everybody seems to be making assumptions about it, one way or the other. Because during the most recent Q&A, I had asked some questions about the pet system because I wanted a little bit of clarification about how it was working, and one thing he had mentioned was about pets. Say, if they worked as like a I believe a phrase that was used before was them working kind of some pets might work as kind of like a turret. And I'm like, what does that even mean? And Mark Jacobs said that you could maybe send a pet to a place, sit them as a sentry, and if someone came in there, they would attack them. That's a permanent pet. That's not a spell necessarily. But then again, it could be like an enchantment. It's like a spell that just sits there. So is there a distinction there? I mean, in some cases there might not be one, and it may depend on your class, I guess. But
well, they're also
there seems to be a lot
too.
of assumptions going.
Yeah, they said they will make a pet class. So from what the stretch goal says, it's not going to be. They're going to give pets to the current classes that they are planning. They will make a new class that will use pets, and I'm assuming they would make one for each faction, right? It would be kind of unfair or weird to give it only to one faction, like having a stretch goal that only benefits one faction is kind of weird. So it's probably going to be one for each faction. They will be likely different in essence, but either by being a summoner, essentially, that brings in temporary pets here and there and has a bunch of different ones with different functions, or by being an actual like hunter like class that has one permanent pet and that's it, right? Pets in general create some issues that,
Well, they're also different. I mean, what we're talking about here, like you're saying, Velik and Alistair, you just had hunter pets. They're also different. I feel like a lot of people, hunters who want that hunter pet, they want that permanent pet, that companion where it's like, oh, this is my pet, and maybe it grows over time, and you give it a name, and maybe it has stats, and you went out and you defeated it, and you captured it, and it's got this almost RP sort of quality where it's, this is my pet, this is my buddy. Spirit pets that disappear after 10 seconds or 30 seconds that can just go straight through things, that's basically a fancy spell animation, even if it sticks around for a minute. So I feel like this isn't helping anybody. People who really want pets, right? They want that good pet.
Well, that's the thing. We don't know. We don't know if they're going to be permanent pets or if they're going to be spells. Or for some people, they'll be spells. But maybe for the pet class, they're an actual pet.
And then you keep them forever?
We don't know. And there do seem to be a lot of people that are like, I love this because it's this. And then I'm like, they didn't necessarily say that.
Right, we have no idea.
We don't know that for sure.
Yeah, we have no idea. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the stretch goal announcement, if you read what's on the website right now, at the end of the stretch goal announcement, Mark says, we're going to make something amazing and not the general pet systems that you see on other MMOs. And I'm like, that's great, but what is this amazing? Because if you change it too much, then it's no longer a pet, right? I mean, how much can you take off from the meaning of the word pet and the mechanic before it's no longer a pet, right? Yeah. So, it's temporary. Okay, you can have temporary pets. That's not so bad. You can't control it. You just send it and then it explodes on the target. That's no longer a pet, right? You just took so much from the definition that now it's just a spell, right? So we just don't know if all pets are going to be permanent. Some are going to be permanent, some are going to be temporary, some are going to work as spells. How do they go through things, and what kind of skills do the pets have? Because normally pets have skills that are separate from the player character, right? So, I mean, and then they have the skill creation system. Do you also create skills for your pet? All of this, how it's not just how the pets are going to work in Camelot Unchained, is how they relate to the other mechanics of Camelot Unchained that we already know about, like the skill creation and the physics with the spells and stuff.
Yeah, and he also makes the comment how he thinks that this sort of spirit pet in the post, how it will fit really well into the post-apocalyptic world, especially in the depths and a day-night cycle. So we're talking about what do we know? Well, we kind of don't know anything yet. We're guessing. We think they might be spirits. What do you think? How could the Camelot Unchained pet system relate to a day-night cycle and the depths? Is the depths maybe spirits that you capture, like you capture a wolf?
My main thought was that, they've said when you're in the depths, you're going to be closer to the veil.
Right.
And perhaps, so usually the veil is kind of like a spirit essence of some sort, maybe, or some sort of living thing that seems to separate worlds, which sometimes people, associate night with similar things like spirits and stuff. So maybe at night or during the depths, the pets are stronger, or maybe that's where you have to go to capture them or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, maybe they, I mean, we have seen on the videos how flashy spells going to be at night. So, if it's a spirit shining beside you, it's probably going to be something that you can see from far away at the night, too.
So it's just something
you got to be careful with
cool?
the stealth of pets. Yeah.
I mean, a lot of this post, there's only a couple of paragraphs, which, I mean, for I keep saying Kickstarter, but it's not Kickstarter. It's stretch goal.
Stretch goal.
Yeah, for a stretch goal, only having 2 paragraphs of, hey, we're going to do pets, and they're going to be cool, and they're going to look cool, and I think it's going to be cool at night. And, there's no information. You want me to get behind this and give you money? Is that basically what this is? It's just a cool-looking pet?
Apparently it was enough because people gave them money.
That's true. I mean, it funded. If I was a pet person,
reach goal is the stretch goal is already reached, right? So.
Right. If I like Melee, and if there was a stretch goal, hey, we're gonna make Melee really awesome, and it's gonna be all this stuff. You're gonna have a cool looking sword. That's it. Cool looking sword's cool, but that's it. What else makes it good?
Need more input.
Right.
Yeah, it's vague for a stretch goal. I agree. I mean, it was announced in a vague way, and it's still vague even after it's been reached.
Yeah, which we also have to remember, it's not necessarily a stretch goal for launch, so I don't necessarily mind so much that they don't have all the details hammered down.
That's the good thing, It's not going to impact the development of the game, right? So they're not wasting time making a pet class while they're not fixing some other stuff that is more important, right? They will only, exactly. So that's good. But at the same time, it's that kind of thing. Well, now we have a stretch goal, but there's nothing guaranteed, essentially. Right?
Right. I don't see any benefit now. I mean, especially even if you're not a pet person, it's not even going to be in the game right now. Let's transition over into our next point, talking about other games. Now, we can compare our experiences. We don't know a lot about the Camelot Unchained pets. What's your experiences in other games as far as pets? And we do have experience with Dark Age of Camelot and Warhammer Online from Mark Jacobs. Obviously, he doesn't do everything, but he oversaw it. How do pets work? I mean, Alistair, you said you use pets in WoW. What are the good features, bad features?
Well, I mean, obviously there are advantages of having a pet that are great if you were using the pet, right? As a warlock, for example, I could counterspell people with the pet. So it was out of my global cooldown, out of my line of sight. I could be CC'd and still counterspell people, out of range if the pet's on them, So, like, having a pet gives you a bunch of advantages of casting abilities or using stuff on people when you're not really on them. You don't have to be paying attention to them necessarily. You can be doing something else. You're doing, casting, interrupting a healer or on the other side of the map, but you have your pet on the other person and your pet's doing stuff. And then, put his skills on your bar and you can just look at, depending on what kinds of interface we have, the guy's casting a spell, you press something to interrupt it, You
get to do twice as much stuff. You get two.
Yes, you do. Exactly. And the pet does, there was a point, it's not like that anymore, obviously, because it was a little bit overpowered, but there was a point where the same pet that had the counterspell ability had the devour magic ability as a warlock, so I could actually counterspell the people, and then if they CC'd me, I could devour their CC with the pet. So essentially, the pet was a CC break, which was really overpowered in WoW. Obviously, Camelot Unchained is a different game. We don't know exactly if they will have those abilities or not, but still, it gives you a second point of line of sight. It gives you a second point of range starting. So like I said. You're a caster and you're line of sighting somebody who has a pet, and then their pet is on you. You can't line of sight both at the same time, so you choose one, right? But the truth is, you kind of have to choose. You can never really avoid them. There's nothing that negates that advantage that a pet gives you that isn't giving a pet to the other guy too, right? So. And then, but you can just kill the pet.
Snares for pets.
But if the pet is so squishy that you can line of sight the owner of the pet and just kill it really quick, then it's kind of useless, right?
Especially in big. I mean, this whole game isn't based around arenas, 1-on-1, 5-on-5. When we have 100 people on screen, do we think pets are going to have a health bar? Are these things going to be able to live in an AOE massive battle environment?
If they're permanent, then I hope they have a health bar.
Right. If they're not, if they're spirit, then...
Yeah, if they're spirit and they don't really take AoE, right? Because that's what happens in most games, like WoW and stuff. Like, pets have a mechanic where they avoid AoEs. Like, so you AoE the players, the pets just take like 10% of the damage or no damage at all. So it's weird. I mean,
it's hard to say with how it might work in Camelot Unchained. Speaking of WoW, honestly, my favorite part of pets in WoW is the Pokemon system. Catch your battle pet and you fight it against other people's battle pets outside of combat, and they have no interaction with combat whatsoever. I love those kind of pets. I think they're great. Love having a little puppy follow my character around, and I'll feed him a biscuit or something, whatever. But when it comes to the combat, the warlock pets, the hunter pets, they all get on my last nerves in PvP.
Seriously.
I don't like it. It's irritating. I don't absolutely hate having them. I know a lot of people like them, so I deal with it. But they do kind of annoy me because I go into PvP to fight other players. I don't go in there to fight their bear that's chasing me around, humping my leg while I'm trying to get to them. It's kind of annoying.
Well, what about the fact that, I mean, we're supposed to be talking about good features, and I apologize because I don't think any of us like pets. How many people like pets? I mean, really
pets are really kind of, to me, pets are really kind of a PvE thing, man, you know?
Right.
They're not very good in PvP. I mean, I go in PvP to fight the player, and it's skill-based. That's the kind of PvP that most people enjoy, right? Mm. The thing with the pet is that it's automatic.
It's an NPC. You set it and forget it.
It's an NPC. You know, it has a little AI. Obviously, it might not be very intelligent. It might be the kind of pet that doesn't cast anything on automatic that you actually have to cast. So essentially, you're controlling two characters at the same time, and that kind of advantage in PvP is impossible to overcome. Like, if I'm fighting you and you have 2 characters and I have 1, I'm in a disadvantage, even if your second character is a weakling pet that has limited skills, right? So imagine
that, I mean, if somebody has a disadvantage, though, how many PvP games do you see people where they use a lot of pets? Like, I don't. Like, I remember doing the few times I didn't do a lot of PvP in WoW, but usually when I did PvP in WoW, the pets were annoying and they kind of got on my nerves. I didn't like to fight them, but usually the people that played pet classes, they were primarily seemed to be focused in their other abilities, not in their pets.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you picked a WoW time where pets were kind of So even hunters did builds where they didn't depend on their pets. The pet was there. If it died, fuck it. The person who does damage is me, not the pet. So, there was a time like this. If you go back now to WoW, which I did a few months ago, I die for the pet alone, dude. It's freaking absurd. The pet is killing me. And it's annoying because all the hunter is doing is essentially running from me and avoiding my damage while his pet is on my face. And then, if I try to kill the pet, he just comes back and kills me. And I wear myself off trying to kill the pet. So, I mean, this is the kind of stuff you see. And obviously, I'm talking here on an arena, battleground context where you have like 10 versus 10 people, which is not going to apply to Camelot Unchained. But let's then map that into an RVR game. And you see, we have a group, 15 versus 15, let's suppose, a small fight, trying to take an outpost or just, fighting for resources in some area. 5 people on side have pets. 1 people on the other side has pets, which is not hard to happen, right? So essentially, the group that has 5 people with pets has 20 people, 15 plus 5 pets, and the other side has 16. Right. 14, 15 plus 1 pet, and now you have this massive amount of pets. If you put all the 5 pets on 1 healer, is he going to be able to cast? So essentially, that's the kind of stuff that breaks PvP. It's basically an automatic thing that does stuff for you and makes the game easy.
Right.
It's a valid concern because it really depends on how the pets work. What mechanics do they have? It's like Chris mentioned earlier, and I'd mentioned before, is something I would like to see is what if a pet class, they have pets, but they don't actually just send the pet and go automatically attack that guy and do this thing. Instead, they maybe have to hide their body or something, and they're like a spiritist. They channel themselves into the pet, take over the spirit, fly to the guy, and start beating the crap out of them, quite literally with pet abilities. I'd be fine with that. That would actually be awesome. I would love that. That would be really cool. Because then you're not fighting a pet. You are fighting the pet, but you're fighting the guy. You're still fighting a player. They're controlling it. They're doing stuff.
But
what about this, Alistair? Let me ask you. Earlier we talked about Velik in the depths and being a spirit. What if a pet class by themselves without a pet is at a disadvantage, right? You're not as strong as everybody else. But with a pet, you're as strong, maybe even a little stronger. Because that's the concern, right, Alistair, that a lot of time pet classes are stronger. So you got this keep fight, right? And these people have pets and these people don't. Well, what if the pet is more of like a permanent pet where when their pet dies, you got to go back to the veil or you got to do this long sort of chant or whatever it is. So you're a little stronger with the pet, but the pet dies, now you're at a disadvantage. So the other side could play smartly. Maybe they kite, maybe they pull back and they kill all the pets, and now they know, hey, all their pet classes are at a disadvantage. We are actually stronger than them now. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's got to be a give or take.
Yeah, but then it makes the pet class a little bit, it loses the appeal, like, because you know that eventually your pet's gonna die, and then you're gonna feel useless because you're underpowered, right?
Well, like normally, if you run out there and you're stupid, and because that's what people usually use their pets for. Yeah, they send them out there, they go out there and die. If you knew your pet died and you're at a disadvantage, you wouldn't treat it like a worthless pet. You would pull them back and use them strategically.
Yeah, I mean, I played a warlock, like I said. I took care of my pet as much as I took care of me, because honestly, as a warlock, if I was caught with the wrong pet, even if I had a pet, but I had the wrong one, so I jumped by a warrior with the Fell Hunter, I'm screwed. Right, I need to have the Void Walker, so I instantly summon the Void Walker to try and have a chance. Right, so all this kind of stuff. The pet was something for me to worry about. That really was vital for my class because that's what they are. Essentially, when you have a class that has a pet, you split some of the power between the pet and the player. So alone, the pet alone is bad, and the class alone is bad too. So you have to have both working together. So whenever your pet dies, you're underpowered. You pretty much have no chance, depending on whatever you're doing, right? So that's a problem for people who play pet classes. So what do they do to negate that? Well, they make your pet more survivable. They give you instant summons. They give you ways of having a pet if it dies, so you can recover and go back to the fight. But if they do that, then they risk the pet classes being overpowered. So it is to me, that's impossible to balance. There's just no compromise.
One thing I wanted to ask about, because we got into WoW. We're talking a lot about WoW, which I know all of us have played WoW, so that's understandable. What we're talking about are pets in, at least assuming we're talking about combat pets here. That's what we're really talking about.
Right.
Because people have speculated maybe there's other types of pets that fill different roles other than combat, which I really like. But talking about combat pets, I guess, are there what PvP? Some people mentioned it in chat earlier. Like, I think someone mentioned Guild Wars 2, and someone mentioned I forget what the other game someone mentioned was, but they mentioned some games that pets had certain roles in the PvP, and I think someone mentioned them being good. Like, pets in one game were good at small
like
small
Warhammer
fights,
Online,
but not large fights.
Warhammer Online, I played. It was a White Lion, which is a game Mark Jacobs was a part of. It was his game. And the cool thing about that was you would have an ability where if you and your pet were, let's say you're fighting someone, you're both attacking, you and your pet are attacking the same person, you use an ability, you would both use that attack on the person. But let's say you sent your pet to a caster and you're attacking this other guy, then you would attack, you know what I mean? So it was cool interactions like that. And then also Dark Age of Camelot, they had I can't pronounce it, the Thuragist or whatever it is, and they would bring up these spirit pets, but you would have like 30 of them. It would look ridiculous. It'd be like a train, like copies, like boom, 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 train of these pets going out and like hitting someone, and they would get like hit by these pets. So I mean, honestly, I feel like it's just a fancy spell. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that was what I was going to ask was, what games did we have where pets actually worked in PvP, where pets had a purpose?
I can't remember one. Like the Guild Wars 2 Mesmer is not really pets. It's just like little copies of you. You don't control them. You don't send them to people. They're not permanent. They're not. They are copies, but they're not pets.
I think they work. They work for their system, but it's not a pet. Yeah. I mean, I don't think they work. They didn't work in Dark Age of Camelot, Warhammer Online, Rift, Ion, WoW. Guild Wars 2.
Everybody's like, "Well, pets are successful in WoW." Well, we haven't done arenas.
I mean, I've played probably a dozen MMOs. Every major MMO, not a single one have pets been. Now in PvE, yes, you can have a hunter go out. You have a bear pet. He tanks for you. You do damage. Or,
yes.
You know what I mean. But in
PvE works, but this is not a PvE game, right? So
PvP, it's always a pain in the butt. Even using the pet. I've tried pet classes before. It doesn't work. It has problems. It doesn't attack who you want to attack. It's slow. It dies.
The thing is, depending on a pet that is not really good in terms of, it doesn't deliver the spells in time, or dies really easy, or it doesn't have really good abilities. So depending on a pet like this, as a player, is bad in PvP, right? Nobody wants to lose some of their power to have a pet like this. So what do? They come up with builds that they can use without the pet, because then they would not depend on the pet, right? Which is what people did when the hunter pets were bad in WoW and so many other games. So exactly like Diablo, where you have the necromancer. The necromancer that raises a lot of undead. It was cool, right? But if you were caught before you raised your undead, you were dead, right? So nobody wanted to depend on spending 10 minutes raising undead before you actually go into fight, so they made the bone necromancer, which is the necromancer that used bone spells and didn't depend on any pets, right? So that's what people do. When they see that the pet's kind of meh, they switch to something that negates the pet need.
And they also have scaling issues too. Pet classes usually don't scale very well. End game, you get this great gear, but your pet doesn't get it. I apologize. I mean, we're all three of us are excited for Camelot Unchained. We want it to do well. We're founders. We put money in, maybe hundreds of dollars into this game. We want it to do well, and we're talking negatively about pets because none of us are interested in pets. And it's not like I ran around and found 2 other people who didn't like pets so we could have 3 people. We were doing this show long before they ever came up with pets, and it just happens that out of 3 people on the show, all 3 of them don't like pets. How many people actually care about pets? I
think there are a lot of people that do like pets. I mean, I don't want to say money talks.
10%, 20%.
To be honest, you say they have the stretch goal and people fund that. That's all well and good, but how many people actually put that in there just for the stretch goal?
Right.
Probably not all of them by any means, because there are plenty of new people, I would assume, that are funding the game to become backers, not just for the stretch goal. I imagine tons of people who are already backers aren't necessarily putting more money in to make that stretch goal happen. Some surely are. Because they love pets, and there are a fair number of people that really like pet classes. I know we have some people in our guild that are really into pet classes. I can think of at least one or two in particular that you announce a pet class, they're like, I'm playing that game because that's their thing. They love that.
So
I'm not that way.
Well, let's go off of that. Tag on to that. Does this system for Camelot Unchained fix the problems we've been talking about? And the people who like pets, will they like this system, what we know of it?
I don't think we know enough about it, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't think we know enough.
And
but
that's the
assuming that they will be at least similar to what we have seen on other games, pets will always be an NPC. And an NPC helping a player.
Well,
and that's not cool in PvP. When you win, it's because the NPC is overpowered. When you lose, it's because, my NPC died. Right?
Right.
That's what it comes to. I mean, who played Star Wars and had companions and liked to do PvP with companions?
I quit in that game once I got companions. I quit that game.
Yeah, using companions in PvP is BS. That's why you can't have them into the battlegrounds, in the war zones. You can't have them in any PvP areas because they unbalance PvP completely, regardless of what they do. It's a healer, it's a DPS, no matter what. So the fight becomes about who has the most powerful, well-equipped, and right NPC for that given fight. Which is not cool. The fights in PvP should always be about the player skill, and that kind of stuff. So pets, no matter what they do and how they are implemented, they are NPCs aiding a player. However they do that, whatever mechanics they actually use to aid the player, or however limitations that they have or they don't have, they will always be an NPC aiding the player. So if they're useless, the player will get rid of it because it's useless to dump resources, time, effort, thinking about a pet that is useless or weak, right? And not necessarily totally useless.
So it affects everybody.
It affects everybody.
Even if you don't play a pet class, it's going to affect you. You're going to lose and say, oh, that pet was really strong. I hate it. If you die to a player, at least you can say, well, they beat me, whatever. Yes. Dying to an NPC in a PvP RVR game, that's going to be frustrating, right?
And what is the strategy? And when the pet's not useless, then it's strong. It means it doesn't die fast. It has some abilities that are better than if you had them yourself, etc. So they give the player some advantage, enough for the player to invest on that pet. So they do invest on the pet. And then what happens is that for other people fighting against that guy, they have to ignore the pet and focus on killing the guy, because the pet's so strong that if you try to waste time killing him, they are going to kill you. Right? So you might even kill the pet and then die to the player. So you have to focus the player and ignore the pet. That's what you're doing WoW.
This is why, combat-wise, to me, there's like 3 different types of pets that I prefer to see them used as. Either one of or all 3 in some mixture, I don't know. One is like the turret pet, which has kind of been mentioned, where you have some type of a pet that you put in a place and it does some kind of an effect, or maybe, attacks people that come into there so people can see it. It's not chasing them all over the battlefield. It's just a deterrent to keep them out of that area, or they know they have to deal with it when they get in there. 2 are the spells. They're not really pets, but you go, hawk laser, and you shoot a little hawk that flies in the air.
Yeah, that in WildStar, I think.
Or whatever, And the third one is kind of what we mentioned before, where you have like a shaman type character that summons a spirit, and then they really put themselves into it, and the person directly controls the pet. They fly off. They're actually seeing as if that's their character. They're using abilities and going and clawing people or whatever they're doing, and that's what they're doing.
That could be really cool. And MJ says, I mean, it's going to be cooler than other games. It's going to be different. I mean, I have to expect, with all the problems we've had, the developers know these sorts of problems too. It's not a surprise. Are we expecting this pet system to be vastly different than other games? I am, because if it's not vastly different, then
hope so.
I hope so.
I think the greatest area they actually have to do this, one, I think there's probably going to be some combat element that they do that we've already discussed. What I really hope is that there are other uses for pets outside of combat. I really hope that people, there may be different classes. Maybe there's a pet class that focuses on combat or something. I don't know. But then maybe other classes can use pets for other reasons.
Something that Arcane Cloister said on the chat too. It would be fun to see the crafters getting pets. Crafter sounds like like they could use the pet because they are weak themselves. So having a little pet to scout an area while they're farming, or to
maybe find resource nodes.
Yeah, find resource nodes, or maybe some pet that they can put here that will detect any stealth. So they can put it on a choke point and then go farm, and then if somebody passes by there, even if it's stealth or trying to hide or camouflage, whatever it is that they have in the game, I don't know how.
So almost like a trap sort of thing,
like a trap. Because they already have traps in the game.
Early warning system.
Yeah, but
someone's coming to mess me up. I gotta get
they already have traps. They could make the pet be essentially like a movable trap, so you can go there now. Oh, move here. Oh, why don't you go there? That kind of stuff for scouting, for gathering. Or even help on crafting. You can leave your pet doing something and go do whatever, It
can find resources for you. Send the spirit hawk out and it says there's ore over this way.
Yeah, and it's immune to damage, so you can do that safely at a slow pace, right?
That'd be cool.
But they have to be careful because that could kill emergent gameplay, right? If it's too powerful, people won't go out anymore. They would just send their pets, right?
And you can still see some of the same stuff as not combat maybe in the RVR area, like I think Chris mentioned earlier in chat having pets that can scout some of the battlefield. You have your Spirit Hawk again. It flies over an area and tells you if there's any enemies it can see just kind of moving around out there. There may be some other non-combat uses for pets on the field and the combat field.
Yes, exactly. So that would be cool. But the essential combat feel of the pets, the way the pets work in fights, I don't see how they could make a system that negates the problems we were talking about before. The imbalance problems where people are too dependent on the pet or ignore the pet, or and the line of sight issues and stuff.
Well, and that's why they get paid the big bucks. Hopefully, they spent all this time. They spent 2 years basically saying we're not going to have pets because of problems, and then all of a sudden they said, "Hey, we figured it out. Give us money because we're going to do it great." Let's just assume they know what they're doing. I mean, they haven't shown us that they don't know yet, right?
Yes.
So since we can't figure out how it's going to work in combat, let's talk a little bit more. What else can they do out of combat? I mean, in chat, Chris is talking about hold your stuff. A lot of times, can they hold stuff? These are spirit pets. How are you going to put items on them? It's a spirit.
Yeah. If they go through walls, I assume they can't just carry stuff. They might be able to use, telekinesis or some kind of, spirit force to move things and hit people, etc.
Right.
But like working as a mule, essentially. Yeah, working as a pack mule, put it on the pet. And
well, what if you go down into the depths? I just thought of this. You go into the depths, and the side that was there before you, they set up all these traps, right? Instead of sending people out there to die to the traps, what if you send your spirit pets out and they can detect traps and disarm them maybe? And you know what I mean? That's kind of like a crafter thing. It's not really combat.
That sounds kind of overpowered at that point, though, because that kind of is the appeal of the depths, is to walk through there and not know what's ahead of you. So then
I'm not saying you just automatically get rid of every trap ever.
I think that would be. I don't know that.
Even one trap.
So what if you? So what if you had a thief class that could detect in a small area around them, then go really slowly and maybe unlock find traps? That would be cool. Why can't a pet do it?
Okay.
Why can't a crafter get that? I'm not saying you push a button and every trap is gone. I don't like the idea of a character
doing it either.
No,
a
so you just have to run into every trap that's down there.
You can ambush characters. You can and it's worth it. But a pet, if you ambush a pet, what have you accomplished? Nothing.
I'm trying to think of other way. Okay, listen, we all hate pets. Okay?
I don't hate pets.
We have spent 30 minutes talking about how we hate pets.
I do hate pets. Yeah.
We've spent 30 minutes talking about how we hate pets and the system is terrible. I'm trying to think of ways to make it good, because like you said, there are people out there that like pets. What can they look forward to in this game? We think they're going to look cool.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about what they can do. Right?
Hopefully they won't.
Sentinels, etc. Yeah.
Hopefully they won't have the problems we've seen in other games, maybe with pathing. Hopefully they look cool. Maybe they can gather stuff for you. Any other really awesome features that we're excited about for pets being in the game?
I kind of already mentioned some. Like Maybe they can even gather mats. I don't know.
Well, I won't pretend I am excited for pets being in the game, dude.
Okay,
so,
not you, someone else. Is there any so they might look cool in the game. They might gather and do other stuff outside of combat for you. It might be, hopefully, maybe enough of a different system where it's like a whole play style, where it's not just a spell, but like Velk, you're talking about, maybe you go into the pet and it's like a spirit and you take it over. That could be cool. Anything else?
You could have them.
Yeah, I mean, we have seen.
You can have them keep watch for crafters or other people, watch over areas as an early warning, a type of alert system.
Right. Yeah. What I'm saying is,
in the combat area,
anything else?
Yeah, I'm just saying. In the combat area, we can have them scout out areas.
We've already talked about that.
I know. I'm just saying we have discussed some positive things they could possibly do.
Yes, I just recapped. Those are the positive things. I'm trying to think, because we're not pet people, the three of us. I'm trying to think someone's going to watch and say, oh, well, there's this awesome thing that could be happening, this cool thing. Is there anything else that because we don't have much to go on. They didn't tell us the cool things they can do. What else can we imagine a pet could do that we say, oh, that's cool, that we haven't already talked about?
I don't think there's anything.
There's nothing?
My imagination fails me, honestly.
Yeah,
I mean, talked about the ones I could come up with.
Right, and those are some cool ideas. I'm just trying to think what else could make them cool.
I mean, because even the thing you've talked about where people go into the pet and then kind of, like the shaman, so he essentially, like, his soul gets out of his body in the form of a spirit pet, and then he goes to fight with his pet as a spirit, and like his body is tucked to him somewhere else, which is cool, because then if the guy gets defeated, he's not really dead, right? Or maybe he is, I don't know, but because his soul died, so maybe he's dead. Right. But even that is not, it's like a combat stance, like you can accomplish that without spirit pets. That's not pets. That is you could just as easily go fight as yourself, and then have different spells. Like you press a button and then you go into shadow stance, and then now you have all the skills that your spirit would have, and then you just fight with your body. That kind of thing is weird too, because, for example, a lot of people like to look at their characters. They like how the characters look. They like, oh, I got this new armor. It's shiny. It's beautiful. And now I won't get to see it often, because when I fight, I actually fight out of my body, so I don't even see my body. It's always the same spirit animation wherever I'm, however I'm dressed, whatever gear I have, which is a problem that druids have in WoW, for example.
Yeah.
Where, like they transform and then their gear disappears, right? So, I have this cool gear, but nobody actually sees it, because when I'm tanking, I'm a freaking fat-assed bear, right? So,
it is pretty fluffy.
It is pretty fluffy. So your character looks intimidating. In fight, it doesn't. It's just a fluffy bear, right? So that kind of stuff is problematic too. So I honestly don't know. I mean, people have talked about carrying stuff, gathering for you. That's all those things that I think would work in Camelot Unchained.
It kind of adds this middle step, right? We talked about maybe it could scout for you and go find ore. Well, why do you need a pet to go do that when you could just have a spell that does it, right? Like, it seems the same thing we already have, but different. I don't know.
Honestly, it's an aesthetic thing.
Nobody.
Personally, I would rather walk around and say I have this cool pet that can fly around and do things for me than to be like, I have magic mind node detecting spell. I mean, activated on my Pip.
Yeah, for example, the Eye of Kiilstofte.
And that's kind of cheesy. I'd be like, oh, that's kind of cheesy. But if I have a hawk that can send out and I have to wait like a few minutes and then it comes back and goes, there's a node over here. Right. I would find that a little bit cooler than the alternative, which is a spell.
Could you leave them in the depths and they can report back to you what's happening, like the Seeing Eyes we talked about last week?
Maybe.
Because we talked about it being maybe part of a crafter class. When we started this, we were talking about, hopefully we're assuming all three realms are going to get their own crafter class. How would you feel if the pet class, let's say you play Arthurian and I'm so excited for a pet class, and the pet class comes out and it's part of the crafter, and then you're like, oh, I don't like to craft, right? Like, doesn't that, it would have to almost be,
it has to be a new class. Yeah, that's what they said. They will have a pet class, right? We think it's going to be a new class. All the stuff that we have talked about was just speculation, like, oh, it would be fun if crafters had it, but...
Well, it's all speculation because we don't know anything.
Exactly, yeah. But it would be... but, for example, if you have the Warlock has the Eye of Kiilstofte spell, which is essentially you summon a little eye and then you can run with it and scout, right? Which is what we were talking about. Nobody thinks that's a pet, right? Nobody looks at that as like, oh, I'm going to summon my Eye of Kiilstofte pet to go scout. No, scouting spells are not pets. That's
But what
that's
if
not
you
what
have the
pet
pet?
is.
It's always there, and that's just one of its abilities is that it
Yeah.
can scout.
Yeah, okay, cool. But then
It's kind of semantics, but it's a little bit different.
but if
It's a
the
little
pet
different
can
in the chain.
scout, then you can also scout, and anybody else can.
Right.
It's useless.
Right. I agree. Even if you don't play a pet class, let me ask you guys. Let's forget, because we've talked kind of a lot about this as if we were playing a pet class. Like, I don't want to deal with these problems and stuff. None of us are going to play pet classes. How does this affect you guys in game? I can say personally, most of the time when I'm playing like a big PvP game, the game's not running at 120 FPS, right? It's slower. There's a lot of people on screen. Performance is an issue. Pets are going to add a lot more, especially if they're flashy, fancy-looking things. It's going to affect performance a lot. When you have 200 people on screen and 30 of those are pets, those could have been real people, right? Like,
Possibly.
Yeah.
And,
I hate to say it, but
that's one benefit of the spirit pet, and that they mentioned though, is that because of doing it this way, there won't be as much load on the server. They don't have to be as detailed.
well, there's more than having no pets.
Yes,
it's
but
not
I'm
as
just
much
saying,
as having.
They don't have to be as detailed as a full player would be. They're easier to render and everything. Honestly, looking at
they're
pets,
essentially for the server, they're like a spell, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I have played pet classes on occasion. I normally don't like playing them. The only time I've played one where I liked playing it was in Champions Online, which is not a particularly stellar MMO, but it was on Champions Online, and that was because I had turrets. That was it. I put them down, and they shot my enemies, and that's all they did. Were they real pets? Kinda, sorta. They were mine. I controlled them. They followed me around and healed me and shot things. Without them, I wasn't terribly good.
Right.
But they pretty much were supplemental to me. They just added onto my firepower.
Yeah. That's a fun
and
play
I like
style.
those.
Yes, it is.
play
But
style.
that's the thing. Other people don't have that addition to their firepower. So you're essentially there's an advantage that you can't overcome. And I mean.
It doesn't necessarily have to be an advantage that you can't overcome, though. I mean, they added my firepower. That doesn't necessarily mean collectively I have more firepower than someone else does. The turrets didn't move. They just sat there and shot.
It's good for
just
defending
DPS.
points.
Yeah, it's good for defending because then people have to come to you and they can't avoid your stuff, right? Like when you're attacking, you can just not move near the turret and then you're good, right? Well, when
Also,
you're
admittedly,
defending
that was mainly a PvE game. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. Pets are, like I said in the beginning of the video, pets are a PvE mechanic. You're essentially trying to put, like Various said that on the chat, you're trying to put that PvE concept, PvE NPC, assisting you in PvP. Right. And that always negates skill. Because I'm fighting against you, you beat me, you beat me because you're better, you have better gear, you have better skills, you played better, right? But if you have a pet, then, well, I could have won if you didn't have a pet. Then it always feels like the NPC killed us,
Hoodster did mention having the pet. What if the pet just gives you a buff? What if that's all your pet does is hangs out and he gives you a buff? Depending on, I'm sure it would depend on your build.
Then just give you a buff skill.
What if your pet gives you a buff? But a lot of things they've done have referenced back to tabletop gaming and Dungeons and Dragons, and that is something that goes straight back to D&D. Wizard,
familiar,
you have a familiar, it gives you a buff. That's mostly what it does. It can also deliver touch attacks. Most people don't use it for that because then it gets killed.
Yeah, exactly.
So most of the time it just gives you a little bit of a buff, and that's all it does.
Yeah, I use it
most
for
people
healing.
forget they even have them. They're like, oh yeah, I have a bird.
Yeah. Another thing, I think this could affect everybody, because, I mean, a lot of people who may be watching this aren't interested in being a pet class. The way this affects everybody else, what if, we've talked about being spirits in chat, talking about spirits not having collision. Is this going to be a problem with you're fighting at a keep, they send their spirit pet, and it just runs right through the wall and attacks you inside the keep? Usually you have a wall to hide behind. Is it, if
I could see it possibly being an issue, but I don't think one would be an issue. Now, if like the entire enemy army had pets and they all, or a bunch of them did, and they sent them in, I could see that being an issue. Just one, I mean, there's going to be undoubtedly.
Well, as soon as they find out, hey, this works really well, you're going to have 50 people doing it, right? Like, but if we take away the problem of collision and it gets stuck on a rock, well, now it doesn't have collision because it's a spirit. Then it doesn't have collision for a wall. Unless, are we adding special walls that have spirit repellent spray on them? Like,
well, I'm also assuming though that they'll have to be able to see you to initiate contact. They still have to at least start with line of sight to send the pet after you. Otherwise, how do they even see you to target you?
Right. So I see you on a wall. 40 people send their pet after you. You jump down behind the wall. 40 pets come through the wall and kill you, and then disappear. And then I don't know.
That's why, again, I hope that if they're in combat, the pets are going to be permanent, because then if they go through there, people can kill them.
So a permanent pet that doesn't have any collision detection.
More or less, yeah.
Okay. All right. And we're thinking maybe at the VL. I don't know.
Again, we're assuming that these are powerful in combat, though. We don't know. They may not be. They
Well,
may have
that's
other purposes that just maybe supplement the pet character. Maybe they actually are combatants, and their pets just do other things that supplement them. We don't really know.
Right.
Yeah, I don't want to use the argument of personal incredulity here, which is basically, oh, I can't see how this could work, so it shouldn't be there. You know, that's just lame. You know, that's just because I can't imagine a way it would work. I don't have the right to say that something should not be.
What we do know that the first thing they said was they didn't want pets because they were a problem. Then they said they figured out the problem. They're going to be spirits. So if spirits go through things and they expect us to make castles, that's half of the game is making, right?
That's a whole new problem. Exactly.
Half the game is cube, and then
before an attack, send all your pets through the walls on the healers. You know,
right?
Like now, while they're fighting the pets, trying to. Healers are struggling, you're hitting the walls, and then you run in, right? So that's overpowered. It shouldn't be possible, for people to just go through your castle walls with a pet. Right. So that kind of stuff, pets that go through things generate other problems in a siege game that we just.
But if they don't go through things, then they have the pathing issues they have in every
the pathing issues.
Other game.
So it's between a rock and a hard place, right? So I think this is weird. Until they tell us how they want to do it, this exactly, I will think this is a bad idea, because I can't possibly imagine how the system will be implemented, negating all these problems. But like I said, I'm not making any hard claims or anything based on what I can't imagine, right? Yeah, they say they've got it. Like in the end of the stretch goal there, Mark says, we're going to make an awesome pet mechanic, but...
And they have a lot of time. I mean, being the first extender pack, technically, they probably haven't worked on it at all. They're going to have the other classes in, the game in. The game's going to be running for a while, probably months, so they can get feedback and figure out how to fit these in where it works.
Yeah, and being completely honest, when you describe a stretch goal of pets, but then goes... to say that they're pets, but they're not like pets because of X, Y, and Z, and they're more like spells. And then you say that you're going at the end of the declaration that you're going to design a system that is totally different from the pet system that we have on other MMOs so far. Then why are you calling them pets? It seems like they just put that stretch goal there because they didn't have anything else to put. That's I might be overly mean here on my statement, but that's how I see it. Let's make an expansion pack. Well, what are we going to put in there? Oh, say that we're going to put pets, and then if it doesn't work, we just don't put it in. Because that's what essentially they said. If it causes a lot of problems, if it doesn't work, it doesn't feel, they won't put it in. They won't make it even after launch. It's there, right? Mm-hmm. So if it's something that you might not put in, how is this a stretch goal? Like the next stretch goal that they have is bonuses, like cosmetic stuff, right, for you to put into your keep and stuff. Essentially achievements, but not achievements. It's just rewards for doing stuff, and then so you can show how badass you are.
A visual achievement instead of a text-based achievement.
Yeah, a visual achievement. Exactly. Isn't that more important than having a pet class that might not even be there?
It affects everybody.
They are working on putting those in the game first. To be honest, I don't doubt that they want to put pets in there, and they said they're going to be a stretch goal. So I don't doubt that they went, okay, we want pets, and we've thought about this and we've worked it out. I believe them when they say that. I think it's important that it is delayed, or that they work on other things first. I don't think pets or spirit animals or whatever are so important that they need to be worked on immediately. I think stealth is far more important to me.
We haven't even talked about it
first, and we don't have that yet. But the The thing that I'm worried about is putting that as an extender goal, saying we're going to have pets and maybe even a pet class. Actually, it's the pet class part of that that's worrisome about me, which isn't necessarily guaranteed. They may have pets without having a pet class. So say they have pets in the game, and say they make a pet class post-launch. Who's gonna re-roll? Who's gonna go, I've been working on this character for 4 months through a relatively horizontal progression, but which takes a lot of time to build up my skills and buy equipment that crafters make. I'm just going to re-roll for a pet class.
People who really, really love pets.
But are
They
those
want to
people
start
even
as
gonna buy
pets.
the game in the first place if they're not going to be able to start off as pets? They're going to wait, I would assume, until the
Right.
pets come out.
Yeah.
So that is the part that kind of bothers me, is that you kind of tell people that they might have a pet class, maybe. And some of them might
After
buy
launch,
for it, but I would imagine a lot of them aren't, because they're going to want to wait. And the people that really love pet classes,
So then you're just wasting your time for 3 or 4 months.
They're going to want to wait until
Yeah.
they see if that comes out.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
and
my
the testing,
assumption.
right?
Could be wrong.
So the testing is also problematic, because then, like, we know that all the stuff that will be pre-launch, it will be, overly tested, we'll balance, we'll have the alpha, we'll have the beta, and it will be, oh, this skill is not working, oh, this is not, this is overpowered against healers, so let's change this a little bit. So we'll be testing and on the ground with all this stuff. The pet will not be included on that balance. That is going to be done prior for the game launching. Then the game launches, and it's fairly balanced. Obviously, we know that this game will not be 100% balanced. Some classes will be stronger in 1 versus 1. Some classes will be stronger. You can have setups, use different sets of gears, use different sets of skills, and make skills for different situations. So we all know that, right? But there will have to be some balance. We can't have something like the Dragon Knight and the Werewolf combo on the beta of ESO, where you pretty much were unkillable as a Dragon Knight Werewolf. You're just dropping standards one after the other, never dying. So that kind of stuff will have to be balanced. And then 4 months later, they put a pet class into that mix. Will it have enough testing to balance out with the rest of the classes? I don't know. I mean, they won't have the massive test that they have on beta, because people will be playing the game. So, is it going to fit? Are people going to re-roll? Like you said, re-rolling this game seems to be very hard. It seems to be something that takes time. You lose a bunch of skills, and it's daily only to get XP, and it develops through use. So you're gonna take as much time as you took. You can't really quickly re-roll and reach the other character you had in terms of skill. You're gonna have to, crawl up again.
You can't power level for a weekend and get to max level, right?
Exactly,
To counter my own point on that, one thing that they could be considering is, as we all know, when an MMO launches, within like 3 months, they lose a lot of subscribers, because a lot of people go in there really excited, and then they go, this game isn't quite what I wanted, and so they pull out. It happens in every single MMO. So one thing they could be doing is playing the long game in that regard, and saying, we may not have pet class out at the launch, but people may come in later on, and we may need to replenish some of those numbers, and some of those pet people might say, oh, they're introducing a pet class. I like that.
Right.
And so let me buy in.
So 3 months later, I was going to quit, but they got a pet class. Let me try a new pet class. And then
I'm actually thinking entirely new people, entirely new subscribers that they might be able to draw in.
And then 6 months after launch, hey, now they have a stealth class. And so like they could just
I hope that's at launch. Don't
string it out. Well, why would
don't
it
play
be?
with my emotions.
I mean,
Don't
let's talk
emotions.
about. We've hit an hour, but let's talk last point, and we've kind of touched it on already. But how do we feel about this being the first extender pack? Right, like Alistair, you were just talking about how they have achievements and stuff. Why was that not before, right? If they're going to have stealth in the game at launch, if we do, we don't even know. But if they were, why was that not before this? I feel like since this is
I think stealth is like, they don't need a stretch goal for stealth, right? I'm assuming they will just do it.
Well, why wouldn't they? I mean,
it's never been guaranteed. So, but that's like an entirely different argument. So,
but what I'm saying is, if this is the first extender pack, are we assuming that everything that's going to be in the game at launch is already there? Like, do we think there's going to be more things after?
No, because they've already come up with the realms on realm achievements on steroids or whatever it is.
So why do that?
Said that's coming out at launch.
But why do that? Why have this extender pack raise money for something that's not going to happen.
That's what I think. The extender packs would be something you put in as a stretch goal after the stretch goals for everything that will be at launch have already been reached.
Yeah, right? This is everything we can do for launch. Which is not the
case. Yeah,
to be honest, I think the reason they did it that way, if I can interject that, is they were trying to hire the engineers, and that was taking longer than they wanted to hire those engineers. I mean, because that took like a month or 2 months for them to hire these, and they've only hired one of the 2 new engineers, I think. They wanted to hire these 2 new engineers for the game, and so I don't think they wanted to add a new stretch goal and say, we're definitely doing this when they didn't have their team fully filled out. So instead, they put something in there that they knew they would want to do long-term, and they say, we'll fit this in if we can, but we really want to do it long-term. Then they get that funded, then they get the new engineers on, and then they go, okay, now let's talk about some other stuff. And the realm achievements, that's something they can actually send out to another company. They don't necessarily have to do that themselves. They send that out to someone else, get them working on it, and get them to send it back in, so it's less work on their part. So that's what I'm saying is I think the developers themselves, the actual engineers, are kind of reaching their limit of how much stuff they could put in before launch. So they're saying, okay, this would take a lot of work on our part, so we want to send it for future. Now, the Realm Rewards, we can send that out to someone else and get their company to do the art and stuff for that and give it back to us, so it doesn't make more work for us. So then we could get that in before launch.
That makes sense. Yeah,
and then maybe they want to get stealth in before launch, and so that's why pets are a stretch goal for post-launch, because then they go, okay, well, we want stealth. Our team's going to be busy working on stealth, so if stealth gets funded, we're going to be busy on that. So we don't want to do pets till later, which I would respect because I think stealth's more important.
Well, I can tell you the moment, the day, the second that they start talking about stealth, we will have a Veilcast episode about it, no doubt. Let's go around. Alistair, starting with you, final thoughts. Overall, if you had one thing to say about the pets, what we know, how they're going to work, what do you think closing up on that?
Get rid of them. That's what I would say. But
it's too late. It's too late for that.
It's already there. Yeah, it's already there. Well, I hope that they are more of a, like, Velix said, like a familiar, like a cosmetic thing. It's just a concept. They're not really combat pets that you send, like the hunter's pet, like the warlock's pet. That they are more like something that, just like a shaman's totem, that you have on World of Warcraft. You drop a totem, it gives you a little buff, and then it disappears, So it's like you summon a pet really quick, it gives you some strength, and it's just like using any other spell. The pet aspect of it is just the graphics, right? So if the spirit pets were implemented like this, like any other spell, but just, you have a pet class that is essentially like a summoner class that summons a bunch of different spirits, and each spirit does something different. Just like the shaman summons a bunch of totems, and each totem does something different. That would be fine for me. I wouldn't have a problem with that. It can be fun. It can add, we need different concepts of casters, of classes in the game, and that would enrich, I think, the whole game. But if it's really combat paths like the Hunter, if it's something that really goes into people, does disruptive damage, interrupts spells, is a second line of sight point, etc., I don't want to see that. Even if they are, even if they are like intangible, they have no collision, they don't have pathing problem. I don't care. The problems they create are too much. I think spirit pets need to be implemented in a way where they're not really pets. That's the only way I could see it.
Right.
Now, but obviously waiting for information.
Sure. I'll just say, Velik, before I let you go last and have the last word, I'll say whatever the system is, I hope it's meaningful. Like, I hope people who like pets, I hope they go, I like this pet class. Because I'm worried that if it's a spirit pet, if it disappears, if it's not permanent, the pet people are going to go, well, this isn't a pet. I don't like this. And then it's all for nothing. You know what I mean? Because non-pet people don't care either way. And if the pet people don't like it, I just hope that it works well. Obviously, I mean, that's pretty easy to say. I hope it works well. But I hope it's meaningful, like you're talking about taking over, like a whole mechanic. Like in chat, we're talking about stealth is so important. It should be at launch because it's such a huge mechanic. I hope pets aren't just some little like tacked on kind of pointless thing. I hope they're a meaningful, interesting, like, oh, that's a pet class, that's a whole system. You know what I mean? So, but I hate pets anyway. I think it's terrible. Velik, what do you think?
my comments are going to mirror yours a little bit.
That's why I went first. I knew it.
I hope that there's a lot of different uses for pets besides just combat. And I think there are some ways that pets can be used and work into this combat in this game. I think there are ways to do it, and I trust that they've thought this out and that they've come up with some ways that they want to do it that they think will work. My concern with it is much the same as yours, that they might make something like what Alistair wants, which I don't think will satisfy people who want pet class, who want like an actual pet class. I don't think that'll satisfy them at all. I think they would see that and be like, that's a mage. That's not a pet class. Yeah. That's not what I want to play. And so then they would be disappointed. And I don't want to see anybody going into the game being disappointed. I want everybody to enjoy the game. And it's going to be a contentious and problematic sort of thing. But that's my main concern, is that if they do, which again, they haven't necessarily confirmed a pet class, but if they do one, then I want to see it have an actual pet of some sort, not just spells.
Sure. Well, I am really curious what you think. If you stuck with us through this, if you're watching on YouTube, leave us a comment down below in chat. Let us know, are you a pet person? Do you like pets? Are you excited for pets? How do you think this system is going to work? Let us know in the comments down below, and we will see you next week, every Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, right here. We'll see you next week.
See ya.